Hi, my name is Anazi Piper. Welcome to Smarter Mobility African News. Today, I've got a very exciting guest coming all the way from Rwanda. Welcome to Doreen Orishaba, who's the Managing Director of BasiGo Rwanda. Hi, Doreen.
Hello, Anazi. Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to join the conversation regarding how do we actually advance smarter mobility within Africa.
Absolutely, me too. And I'm so glad and thank you for also having the time to come and talk to us today. Well, I'm just going to get straight into it, Doreen. You're going to be presenting at Smarter Mobility Africa. You're going to be talking about how small to medium enterprises can scale the electric fleets. Why do you think this is important for mobility in Africa?
Absolutely, because at the moment, it's really important for the rest of the continent to understand that, smart mobility and specifically e-mobility, these are no longer far from us. These are not discussions that should be held in certain parts of the world and not Africa. These are elements that we should be taking and running with to implement right here in Africa. So it's really important, and we know that from my interaction with different parts of Africa and specifically East Africa, we do have people who are interested in going green, but they actually have no idea on how to do that. So I will be excited to be able to help, and specifically people who run who have bus fleets, specifically whether that's going to be the government or the private sector, how especially BasiGo is coming in to enable them transition from their traditional fuel in transportation and being able to go green.
And I know right now, East Africa is definitely leading the charge when it comes to the electrification of
We
fleets and
are.
just in general, just electrification. But who else, in your opinion, whether it's an organization or an individual, who's actually leading the charge when it comes to smart mobility?
It's quite interesting that we have different startups, right? We have a couple of startups, not just in East Africa, but across Africa as well. So when I say startups, of course, think about BasiGo, who is really taking the lead, especially as far as public transport, mass public transport is concerned. You have the likes of Ampersand. We have the likes of the Gogoro. We have the likes of former border work in Uganda. We also have the technology and mobility platforms. So yes, there's electrification. That's really one part of the smart mobility. But then there are those that are making the connection, especially in passenger, in the individual and passenger car world, in the two-wheeler world. So you have the likes of Uber, you have the likes of Bolt. I also think about, for example, the financial institutions that are making some of this possible through collaborating to provide payment platforms for in mobility solutions. The other entities that I can think of include governments that have taken the step to welcome different smart solutions and specifically electrification. When you think about Rwanda has developed a really a great policy to create a great conducive environment for electric vehicles to thrive. So, for example, Rwanda, when you're when you're importing electric vehicles, they're all tax exempt, and this has really driven it has encouraged, it has greatly incentivized the adoption of the electric vehicle in here. But then so yes, I can think of Rwanda, I can think of Kenya, where, for example, they've already rolled out a specific electricity tariff for e-mobility, where there is a favorable rate that's being applied to that. So I definitely applaud the different governments that are embracing that, because it starts with that. We may not have reached that level where, for example, think of China. where you had municipals and governments themselves come in to provide, say, 50 to 60% subsidy on the cost of the electric vehicles. We may not have reached there, but I definitely want to recognize the efforts by different governments to take steps such as creating the right policy, such as providing a great tariff for charging. And you will notice that I'm really focusing on electrification in this chapter. But yeah, but I do understand that there's also elements of data protection as far as enabling enabling the different platforms where we can sustain smart mobility as well. But then there are also universities and innovation hubs that are pushing research and development in how this can be done. I give a shout out to places in Uganda, for example, Kira Motors, that was able, I would say Kira Motors was perhaps the leader in starting out e-mobility, research and development into e-mobility, while the rest of Africa, this was way back in 2011, while the rest of Africa was still thinking, I know, electric vehicles are for another world, but Uganda came out and started to take the lead on that. So I definitely do give a shout out to different research and development entities, innovation hubs. I think there are certain tech hubs, for example, in South Africa, the Silicon Cape, the Innovation Hub in Pretoria, all these elements, these different entities that are coming together to make a contribution. And I must say that electrification in itself, it's not the end on, solving the issues in mobility. Remote or booking platforms, they are not the end. In themselves, they're really not the ultimate solutions, but it's all these entities coming together, working on different elements. And when we all join up, this is when we will definitely end up with, great solutions and the right, the right solutions to great mobility.
Wow, I like how you touched on the solutions. And I know that we need to start somewhere, obviously, but in being just transparent, what are some of the stumbling blocks that you have seen that are causing a lag in the transition?
That's definitely a point that hits close to home because, for example, in electrification, this is why BasiGo exists. So I'm going to talk about electrification and also the other factors as well. One of the key blocks is always going to be high cost because this is new technology. This is it, as long as it's not yet fully mass all around the world, it's still going to be expensive, and specifically batteries. It's a battery technology that the most expensive component, for example, of the electric vehicle, be it a two-wheeler, be it a passenger vehicle, be it a bus. So the high cost of enabling the smarter mobility solutions, right from research and development to actual production to rolling out to deployment. Also for electrification, we think about the high cost of rolling out charging infrastructure for all that. So, but for the public sector, this is where the good news comes in for entities such as BasiGo that are coming in to say, okay, we will come in and provide a way for you to be able to adopt e-mobility into your operations at manageable fees. And this is through such platforms as leasing, providing leasing, coming in to bring charging infrastructure to go with the buses that we are provided. We have elements such as in Nairobi, EV charger that's leading the rolling out of infrastructure, the charging infrastructure, so that even as people with individual personal cars, when they think about, oh, I'm going to bring in a car, but I don't have to think hard. Same way when when you're buying, for example, a gas car, a petrol car, you don't have to think about, oh, I now have to think about the cost of setting up a fuel station. That has never been your worry. So I definitely applaud the entities that are coming in to think that way as well. As we bring in electric vehicles, we also don't have to worry about, oh, now I have to set up a charger. So entities such as EV Charger in Nairobi, entities such as BasiGo going to go ahead and say, yes, we'll provide you the electric vehicle, but also accompany that with setting up the charging infrastructure. So that bus operators, in the case of BasiGo, they don't have to think about the costs or where do I set up charging? How do I even plan for service and maintenance for these buses? We also think about Kabisa, that's ideally doing something similar to that in Rwanda. You think about Ampersand, that is also providing motorbikes to riders both in Rwanda and in Kenya, and yes, coming in to say, okay, yes, we know the cost of the battery is also high, but how do we enable you to do that? Or even the fact that they are locally assembling these vehicles here, the bikes both here in Rwanda and in Nairobi as well, where that means they are building capacity, because as long as you can build something, then you can service it, you can repair it, you will be able to work on it as well. So yeah, definitely high cost is one of the barriers. So I definitely applaud the different companies that are coming in to say, how do we take that burden away? Infrastructure in the case of electric mobility, but also other areas. For example, BasiGo has developed an app that we call Journey. It's a platform where that is supposed to enable passengers be able to reserve a seat on the buses. So think about in an area across Africa, there's, I would say, the provision of public transport, it's not going to be as frequent as we see the London buses making rounds, all over the city. So many times, that peak time, I am going to have to fight for my slot on that bus. So companies that are coming in to say, okay, how do I support passengers to stop worrying about things like that, whereby they are able to just go onto their phone, reserve a spot, and know that, yeah, I will wake up and at exactly 6:15, there is a bus that's ideally waiting for me. My duty is to make sure I have I've booked that slot and I have made it to where I'm supposed to board. So those are the elements of smarter mobility that we also have to think about. The other challenge comes in adoption and creating awareness. It's one thing for all these companies to create great solutions, but then how aware are they, or how aware are the users of these existing solutions? So conversations, I believe, like what we're going to have at Smarter Mobility Africa, spreading the awareness, sharing solutions, bringing together stakeholders to be able to understand that there are people who are already working on solutions. We just need to come in together and support them as well. So yeah, I would look at definitely the high cost of some of these smart solutions, not forgetting electrification, the high cost of the electric vehicles, the lack of infrastructure in terms of, if it's electrification, we need to think about how to set up the charging infrastructure. If it's if we want to create, for example, intelligent movement within the cities, what kind of infrastructure are we enabling? How are we guiding cities to be able to plan in that case? And of course, that's also expensive. And mobility really being, ideally, transport should be like it's a public sector's responsibility. But then in Africa, what we have seen, public transport it's being taken over by the private sector, because the public sector has challenges and sometimes is not able to provide it the way that it should. So really setting up the right infrastructure, continuing to create awareness on what this is, and yeah, financial incentives sometimes are also lacking. We have companies that have great ideas, but they need something to bring those ideas to life. or even to roll them out across different areas. So the limitation as far as financial muscle is also a big element. But we also would like to applaud the different investors that have come out to say, I'm going to back up this company, whether it's doing electrification. I'll be here to back up the company that's, creating online platforms to support individual movements. I'm going to back up the company that's pushing for safety, for example, safety in transport, coordination of reporting of, say, issues that passengers go through, issues of harassment, issues of, traffic errors. So yes, all I'm saying is yes, we definitely applaud the investors that are coming in to back up the companies that are pushing for solutions like ours.
Yeah, I'm actually quite impressed with what we're doing at Smarter Mobility Africa, if I do say so myself. Yeah, so we're going to be just bringing it back to Smarter Mobility Africa. We are actually addressing those big stumbling blocks that you've mentioned around infrastructure, around finance. That's definitely a big one that has been coming up quite a lot. So we're going to be addressing that. And like this year, we have our mobility investment pitches where we're backing the startups that are offering these solutions. And you're right, it's about creating more awareness. It is a very niche industry or sector, I want to say. So it's about creating awareness and making people aware of the solutions that we have right here in our country today. So yeah, as a platform, we are talking about bringing people together. And you mentioned earlier, you touched on collaboration. And that's one thing that we want to, aim to achieve at Smarter Mobility, is bringing everyone from the continent to Smarter Mobility Africa to share in the knowledge and the solutions. And just from your perspective, I would like to understand, is there anyone in particular that you're looking for a partnership with or wanting to collaborate with?
Oh yeah, definitely. I some of the sessions that I'm definitely looking forward to, they include the Women in Mobility breakfast. Women, I, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but yeah, I was really happy to see that you have a session like that to see how do we support women and recognize the role that we also have to play in this. The session on funding fleets and infrastructure. So whom am I looking forward to meeting? Are there any investors that, we can go ahead to collaborate with? Are there any research and development entities or any other organizations that are doing something similar to what we're doing, or that could support us in, bringing improvements and developments to our products as well? Yeah, so definitely looking forward to meeting people in that category.
Amazing, amazing. This year, our core focus and theme for our overall conference, it's embracing the new urban era through smarter mobility. I just want to understand, when you heard about that theme, what does embracing the new urban era through smart mobility look like for you and BasiGo?
So embracing the new era, for us, it represents being open and taking the lead in what's going to cause transformation in our cities, transformation in our communities, around transportation technology, around sustainability, around human-centered solutions. Gone are the days when Africa should just be a consumer of technology, a consumer of solutions. But this is also a time for us as Africans to go ahead and say, we are creating solutions for our country, for our mama land. And I'll give an example. BasiGo, our mission is, we state it as to create the future of clean electric public transport in Africa, right? And So going ahead to how does that relate to embracing the new era? Everyone keeps saying the future is electric. And the great news is the future is here. The future is today. We start the future today. So how do we enable all these things happen? So thinking about what the era of smart mobility, what does it entail? It entails elements of sustainability in transportation, thinking of electrification and other renewable energy technologies that can be incorporated in our mobility. Smart mobility also, we're looking into integration of platforms for example platforms for booking, platforms for ticketing, platforms for ride sharing. You also start to think about an era that's really driven by data, to promote efficiency, whereby we are receiving real-time information, where we are able to do predictive analytics, for example, and projections. So, for example, when you think about someone who wants to roll out their fleet, it's not like they should wake up and just dream of, oh, today on this route, I'm going to put 7 buses. On this route, I'll put 19 cars. No, we are in that era where there is data that needs to be taken care of. So how do we harvest that data and use it to drive decisions, use it to support business people, use it to support the corporate world, use it to support decisions that are being made by the government in providing all these solutions. Smarter mobility also includes elements of, enhanced accessibility and inclusivity as well. So this is the time where, for example, in the design of our buses, we're saying we're bringing in buses that are going to, it should not be a hassle for the humans or the persons who are differently enabled mobility-wise. So, for example, people who are using wheelchairs, making sure that our buses also have wheelchair ramps where we're not leaving out the wheelchair users. They should be able to utilize that. But also affordability in this case. Just like I started earlier, electric buses generally are very expensive, electric vehicles generally. So the smarter mobility era also includes how do we make these technologies affordable to other people. This is where BasiGo comes in with models such as leasing. This is where different companies have also come in to say, okay, we will partner with, for example, the providers of leasing, of leases, so that we can make this technology affordable, leveraging the fact that the technology is affordable and then making it accessible to their users. I would also think about smarter mobility speaking to the environment. So, of course, I've already touched on the fact that, yes, there has to be sustainability, but also how do we keep the community engaged within these solutions that we are providing? How do we provide, for example, green spaces where people, whether it's going to be around the roads or providing places where even recreation in itself it's sustainable. So, for example, electric bikes, you have eco parks or well set up shelters where people can rest while they are waiting for the bus, while they are waiting for a car, but that are set up in a very sustainable way. The other element I can think of is also safety and security. What kind of technology are we incorporating in these carriers, in the vehicles, in the buses, that are going to provide, for example, advanced monitoring of the drivers of the buses themselves? This is where we have elements like CCTV cameras on our buses in order to be able to capture, should anything happen on the bus, should any person feel harassed on the bus, we're able to retrieve that footage to be able to support their case or address whatever the issue has been in there. And it also, if this is also availed remotely, then we should be able to have an emergency integration, rather an emergency response in being integrated into that entire system. Yeah, so I think smart mobility, like I've said, as you realize that there are different portions, and it's not like it's only one thing that's going to resolve what smart mobility is. No, it's all these entities coming together to ensuring that we provide that integrated solution. I think that integrated solutions, sorry, absolutely is the way forward. It's not like it's one specific element that's going to be it. Yep.
I agree with you. I agree on the point of integration and, providing mobility that is accessible and affordable. And then that's what we also emphasize at SMA, as Smarter Mobility Africa for all, and not just for some. But I just want to go back to that point when you touched on affordability, because that's like a really, really critical part of this transition. Can we actually afford it? If you think of like your rural areas, I'm sure in Rwanda you have these similar structures of having a rural area and a peri-urban area where it's half rural, half urban. When we talk about an integrated mobility for all, how do you think we can encompass those types of different structures to make sure that they're also aware of the transition and that, like you said, they can afford it?
It really, thank you for that. It really goes back to data-driven planning and decisions. That's true for most of Africa. The urban areas are going to kind of look the same problems, same issues. The rural areas are also going to kind of have the same elements. So it's really going in to collect specific data. What are the movement patterns? What are the needs? Where exactly are people going? How are they going? If I'm to provide this solution, what kind of backup does it require? So, for example, if you would want to, let's say, we want to electrify rural transport as well. So we go in, and it's important for people to first go in and understand, collect the data. What are the current modes? What are the limitations of regarding those modes of transport? What would be required if we are to send electric motors or electric vehicles there? What kind of energy to power these vehicles is available? What kind of sustainable modes then can we bring to the energy in those areas? So it's, again, every area is unique. It's going to be about collect the data, understand what currently there is, and let that data guide you on the decision that you're trying to bring, the solution that's trying to be brought into that area. Because also, I know cultures are also different. So you have places where certain areas are going to quickly embrace, they're going to embrace setting up, sustainable energy plants. Then you have those that could vandalize them because they are a bit short term, like they are short-sighted. They're looking at, people have set up copper wires. I can just go and vandalize, go sell them for scrap, That is one community. But then you have another community that's a bit more enlightened, and they're like, oh, okay, when we when there's sustainable energy in my village, my children will be able to read in the night. We no longer have to use candles. We will have sustainably powered solutions of transport. So it's really going in to understand what's specific to each area, to each setup, and then seeing the best solutions that would apply there. I must say it's also hard to say that it's going to be one variant of a solution that applies to all of them. They really need to be localized to that specific place. Yeah. I hope that answers it a bit.
No, it definitely does. It's this whole notion of don't talk at people, talk to people and with people. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that solution. But for someone, we've been going at it for a couple of years. I'm sure you've been in the industry for a while. So But someone who hasn't, right? What advice would you give them if they wanted to get started or if they wanted to sort of go into the industry? What sort of advice would you give them?
I would start with, again, make sure your decisions are data driven at all times. Go in, understand the market, and understand what your target audience and reception of your solution is. What does it look like? You know, and specifically for e-mobility, it's also the element of trying to create sustainable and eco-friendly options as much as possible, providing solutions for, you know, is it going to be smart traffic management? Is it going to be smart driver assistance um, solutions? Is it going to be, so really at the end of the day, it's go in, get the right data, really understand what's specific to that market, what is specific to your target audience, what are their pain points, you know, what are the difficulties that they are going through, and then how do you then work with the different stakeholders? Because again, I I totally think that even if one entity has a solution, they will not be able to implement it on their own. You need the rest of the community. You need various stakeholders. Is it going to be stakeholders from the public sector? Because you also have to work with regulators. You have to work with, understand what the tax, for example, what the taxation policies are in that area. You have to work with the public, rather the private sector. Are they going to be the users of what you're providing? How do you collaborate with them? And sometimes I in certain instances, people tend to think that certain things are competition or certain companies are competition. But sometimes I like to think of it as they could be collaborators, especially if they're already pre-existing. And let's say if you're both looking at say electrification, how do you collaborate, you know, to deliver that solution all together rather than keeping on working in silos? So yeah, really get in, collect data, let your decisions really be data driven. Look out for ways to collaborate with either existing stakeholders or even those that could be upcoming. Think about, you know, how do you incorporate safety? How do you incorporate sustainability in your solution? How do you incorporate security? How do you incorporate environmental impact and sustainability in your solutions? How do you make them resilient? How do you make your solutions scalable? Not just thinking about today, but something that's going to work for tomorrow and the other period as well. Yeah.
Wow, I've taken out so much from our conversation already. Data obviously is king, and the sustainability. You know, the future is here, and it's happening right now. And collaboration is key for us to move forward. I really enjoyed this talk with you. I just want to ask any parting shots that you would like to leave the audience with.
I thank you. I've definitely enjoyed speaking with you, Anazi, and I would speak to the audience because I come from the electrification world. It is every one of us has a role to play, right? We have a role to play in, even if we may not be creating the solutions, but let us support the solutions. So I would urge everyone to find a way to drive the future. If you're thinking about if we're thinking about bus fleets, this is the time to start thinking about sustainably powered bus fleets. Not thinking that, oh, the electric bus is still far from us. No, it's here, it's right here. The electric vehicle is no longer so far from us. No, it's really right here. So how do we drive the future? Pushing for electrification in the public transport sector, in the personal or what we call the passenger vehicle segment as well. Investors out there, I would definitely encourage you to support, green technology, invest in the companies and the innovations that are driving e-mobility, that are driving smart mobility solutions. Every one of us really has to look into what kind of role can I play, even if I'm not the one providing it. How do I support it? And this is where governments as well would come in and provide the right policy, create the right environment for smart mobility solutions to be able to survive in there. Really call out, for example, the municipal or the city authorities to find a way to champion cleaner cities within them. That means they're going to support the private sector even as they try to bring these solutions. How can the city themselves come in to address that? And yeah, whoever is driving a fossil fuel powered, or whoever is operating a fossil fuel powered fleet, it's really time to combat that. Now is the period to combat it to electric. But yeah, every one of us really has a role to play. Even if we are not directly contributing, let's find a way to support the movement. Let's find a way to support rollout of charging infrastructure, rollout of these different platforms, sharing the gospel according to smart mobility as much as possible.
I like the sharing the gospel part. Share the good news. Wow, that was so insightful, Doreen. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you at Smarter Mobility Africa in October. That was Doreen. Yeah, that was Doreen, the Managing Director of BasiGo in Rwanda. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. Please do not forget to follow us and subscribe to our SMA newsletter, which comes out every Tuesday. Follow us on LinkedIn on hashtag SMA Summit, hashtag SMA for All, and hashtag the New Urban Era. That's all we have time for today. See you next time. Bye.